Hello. Can everyone hear me fairly well? All right, cool. I'm just going to stand. I'm Irv. I am the owner and development manager at Vol91. We're a small dev and design shop in the North Loop. Today, I'm going to be speaking on JavaScript task managers and a few ways to improve your front-end workflow. I'm going to be going through Gulp, Grunt, and also Brunch. So, what's a JavaScript task manager? JavaScript task managers pretty much allow you to work on small applications or websites and use and leverage the power of JavaScript tools to build things a little faster. So using less or faster compass, and also pulling in tools like image minification, sprite generation, so that you can do that on the fly instead of having to do that in Photoshop or somewhere else. First, some history. I had some notes that I can't look at right now. Okay. So Node.js was published for Linux in 2009. All of the task managers that I'm referring to today run on top of Node. Then soon after, NPM was introduced. NPM is a package manager for Node. So it has, instead of having to build your own packages, it houses packages that are widely used. And it allows you to just install them rather than build them yourself. Also, let me know if you have any questions throughout. Just ask as you wish. So these are kind of the stats on the NPM site. Total packages are a little over 134,000. There are a lot of downloads. It's a fairly popular package manager to use. And to install it is really easy. 2 lines of code in the command line, or just one actually. Just npm install and your node module name. Now we'll get back to awesome JavaScript task managers. First off, it's Grunt. I think it was the first task manager that I came across. I'm not sure if anyone came across anyone before that. To install Grunt, you first need to install the command line interface, which is 1 line of code. And then you need a package.json file, which includes all your dependencies. So uglify, image minification, sprite generation, etc. There's also a config file, which you can write watches, and you can write your tasks in there. So this is how you install a new Grunt module. I'll go through a Grunt config file next. If there aren't any questions. We use Grunt a lot for our internal workflow, and we found that it improves our turnaround time on projects because we can inherit projects a lot easier. When we get a project, all we have to do is npm install, and which just saves a lot of time, allows people to work on multiple projects at once using Git, and it's just a lot funner. So this is an example of a Grunt file, and I think I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So if anyone has any questions, just let me know. So first thing that's really important is your watch task. It watches all of your tasks within it. So compass, JavaScript, lint, image minification. We sometimes use Slim. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Slim, but it's a really, really easy markup language. It's a markup preprocessor language. It allows you to write HTML just with a breeze. So here's Slim. As you can see, it's just really stripped down HTML, really, without the braces. And you can add divs and classes on the fly, pretty much. So if I want to add an H1 with a hello world, I can do that. I'm going to close my watch task and do Grunt Slim and the particles, which will come in handy later, are over it. So here's our hello world that we just created with just doing H1. It's really easy. It helps creating static mockups really quickly, or prototypes really quickly, so that when you get into a development environment, you already have your static mockups already built. It took you half the amount of time to do it. Going back to, so here's an example of this package.json with all of our dependencies. So compass, we use copy a little bit. Copy copies file when it's watching it to another directory. So if something changes in one directory, it will copy that and paste it in the other. ImageMin, pretty self-explanatory. Minifies your images, which is really helpful. For load time, JS hint, kind of just goes through your JavaScript, make sure there aren't any bugs, and helps you write better JavaScript. Uglify is for compiling your CSS in JavaScript. Watch, that's the basic watch task that allows you to watch your different directories. Live reload's great for when you save something, it just quickly reloads the page for you, so you don't have to do that yourself. Slam, rsync, and sync. Rsync and sync we kind of use for deployment. It helps us deploy from our local to dev with just one command. Let's go back to grunt file. So our watch task is right here. It's watching all of these. So whenever something changes in our CSS directory or in our styles directory, I'm going to close some of these. That might be a little helpful. It will run compass. Same thing for JSN and Uglify, ImageMin. So here's where we're pretty much declaring all of our tasks in our grunt.js file. So we use, for our plugins, we generally like to declare them here in our grunt file. So all our dependencies, jQuery, scroller, social feed, anything else that we're using on a specific project, we usually house in our JavaScript and vendor directory. And we call them here, and it compiles to this plugins.js file. So all that concatenation and also compiling is done within Grunt. We also do that for our main JavaScript file. Here's where we are declaring image minification. And then we also have to register and declare our tasks individually in our grunt.js file. Is this making any sense? Nothing. Okay. All right. So for instance, here is our Slim file that we're writing here. Once we compile that, it comes to our HTML file here, all compiled and ready to go. You can have it compiled, or you can have it like regular HTML without the compression. I kind of like it compiled. It saves without the spaces. I feel it's better for the server. It's better for load time. So I feel like I should just go through and install Grunt, because that might be helpful. Let's remove these. So in our vanilla, in our project, we want to do sudo npm install, and that will install all of the dependencies that we've declared in our package.json for us. Just going to run through every single one of them, make sure they're installed and that they are of the current version. Go back to so okay. So there are three really good package managers for Node. There's Grunt, there's Gulp, and there's Brunch. Grunt is great, and we've used that in the past, and we still use it on a few of our projects, but it's fairly slow compared to Brunch, or to both Gulp and Brunch. Grunt can take a few seconds, 2-3 seconds, to load the dependencies and also to run. So if I run grunt watch, it's going to watch. It's going to. Looks like I miss grunt sprite smith. So I can do sudo npm install, and it'll install everything in my package.json folder. However, if I miss something, I can do sudo npm install the name of the actual package, and it'll install that for me. Grunt is really slow compared to Gulp or Brunch. There it is. I'm not sure who's naming these package managers, but they're making me pretty hungry. So after Grunt was created, people liked it. It was awesome. It did what we wanted it to. However, it wasn't fast, as you can see right now. With Gulp, we got similar structure, similar installation guide, but Gulp can compile and run within 2 to 3 milliseconds. I think even less than that, depending on your project, which is great. When you're compiling or when you're watching, having that run really fast helps you to just keep writing code and improves your workflow. The Gulp file, or the package file, not the package file, but the Gulp file is a lot smaller with Gulp. They've kind of made sure that they've made certain improvements to Gulp that Grunt kind of just doesn't come up to the task, I guess. Next is, I guess I can go over Brunch. Brunch is great. It's a lot faster than both of the competitors. Actually, it's closer to Gulp within speed. And it's primarily, so you can use Grunt. I like using Grunt and Gulp for static builds or WordPress builds or applications. But Brunch is more tailored towards Node applications and also, I think you can also use it on Ruby projects, on Ruby applications. I guess I can go through a few projects that we're working on that we're using Grunt in and kind of show you guys how those are currently built. One of the projects that we've been building is Well Spent, which is a style blog. It's really clean. It's a really clean layout, and we're using Grunt, of course. So we have all our assets in our assets directory. So our fonts, our images, and our JavaScript styles, and also SVG assets. And everything in this asset directory gets compiled to this public directory. This allows us to keep all of our source files separate from what we're serving publicly to the web. Once ImageMin goes through, minifies all those images, and also compiles all our code, we still have our source assets within our Git repository. That also helps us when we're linking. There's small things that we do internally that, with using the public directory, helps. And having all of our assets in there really helps. So we use Sass a lot to declare, which allows us to declare variables and also import certain files that we need as Sass dependencies. For instance, using images as backgrounds, we don't have to use paths because everything's getting compiled into our public directory, which saves a lot of time. We just have to type in the file name because we know that file is going to be on the same level as our CSS once the Sass is compiled. Here's our main.v91.sass, and then in public we have our main.v91.css. Same thing for JavaScript. Having it in our assets here, and then also spitting it out in public. Same thing for SVG and images. Also, we're using that copy task specifically for fonts. Because with images, we want to minify them, but for fonts specifically, we want to copy. We're not really minifying our fonts. We just want to copy the fonts directory from our assets to public. So that's where that task really comes in handy. Yeah. What else? Are there any questions so far? No? Nothing? Everyone knows about Gulp and Grunt and Brunch? Nothing. You guys are really quiet. Please do. Yeah. Yes. Just never use Brunch. Okay. So you use Gulp currently? Gulp is okay. No, it's all three of them are JavaScript. So, well, JSON JavaScript, but they're yes, yes. No, Gulp, both Grunt, Gulp, and Brunch are all JavaScript based. For your package, for your package, or for your config. Is that what you're referring to? Let's go to. So here's a Gulp config file. Yep. It's extremely similar to Gulp. That's what I found. After looking into it, I didn't see a huge. Sure, it's Gulp kind of takes care of all your dependencies and just builds everything for you. And there are also different skeletons that you can pull from. However, I didn't find a huge advantage with going with Brunch. I kind of like the flexibility that I got with Gulp. Yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah. I didn't see that much, but different projects need different solutions for their front end workflow. So I'm sure if there's I'm sure there are use case scenarios that Gulp makes sense because it exists and it has a really good community around it. One thing I like about Grunt is that it's established, it's great, it's a little slow, but it has a really big community and it has a lot of different packages, which is really helpful. Brunch is new. It's the newest that I've come across. I actually came across it 2 weeks ago. It doesn't have that big of a community, but it'll take a few months and it'll be on par with Grunt. Is there any other questions? Please ask questions. I will. Yeah, there are different versions of. So there's Grunt Slim. There's Gulp Slim. Yes. There are different packages for those different package managers. And so Gulp, or not Gulp, Brunch, because it's new, it doesn't have that many packages, whereas Grunt has really everything that you'll need because it's been around and has a huge community of developers building packages for it. And so does Gulp and Grunt have a fairly big community combined, or separately, but compared to Brunch, which is fairly new. Yep. I use Slim. Slim is awesome. I really love Slim. For static mockups or prototypes, really easy to build things in Slim. Uglify is great. ImageMin is great. Also, sprite generation is really awesome when you can just put a image in a directory and it gives you your sprite CSS and also your sprite.png. That just saves a lot of time in itself. Compass, we use a lot of. This is Grunt file. We use less or SAS really internally. Less is great. I just prefer SAS, I guess. Syntax really. They both give you the same features as far as nesting CSS, nesting your styles and creating variables, and also I think less allows you to use for loops in some cases within your less files and really get advanced with how you're building your application via your styles and how it functions with different components. Did I see a question? Yeah. I would go with Gulp. we've started migrating most of our projects to Gulp, just because it's faster. Same syntax, really. The Gulp file, Gulp.js files tend to be smaller, and it's becoming more widely supported. Yeah. So you can run your tasks, you can run your builds from your Gulp. You can copy, you can do really the same amount of things, but with less code, which is what we're all pushing for. I would say they're the same. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Not necessarily. You still need a package.json file for both. So that's the only JSON file really that you'll be using, because that declares your not only your project name, but also it allows you to put your repo and all project specific information, and also your dev dependencies. But within your Grunt or Gulp.js, you're writing your tasks, and also how they function, and the files specifically that you're looking for, and where they're being distributed or compiled and spit out. Yes. So one thing I love about Gulp, and I'm sure you can agree, is that Grunt looks, if you make a change with your, like, for instance, if I make a change to my main.css or Sass, it runs through that, and it also runs through all the files that are included in that task, which really sucks. If I make one change to one file, I want to compile that into the next file. So main should compile into main.scss should go into main.css. Whereas Grunt doesn't do that. It goes through all the files within that task. Gulp has a better workflow, and that's mainly why it's faster, because it knows that if you make a change here, I'm only going to change this one file rather than going through and looking at all these other files to compile into this. It also really helps with image minification. The image minification Gulp file runs so much faster because it knows that when you make one change to that image, it's minifying it to the public directory. Whereas Grunt, if you make a change to one image within your image directory, it's also going to minify all those images, which really sucks. It makes no sense, really. Yeah. Any other questions? Thoughts? Ideas? I love questions, guys, if you can't tell. Yeah. They're different in the way that they work, so you'll pretty much have to convert that to the way how Gulp works. Yeah. Are there any other tools that you guys use internally that you guys are kind of finding useful? I kind of like this to be more of a discussion, so that we can share ideas and also some of the stuff that we find useful within our day-to-day workflow. Yeah. Yeah. Any new tools, preprocessor languages that are kind of useful? I know I use Slim a lot whenever I'm creating prototypes, and that helps me write HTML a lot easier because I don't have to worry about uh, uh, just all the boring stuff about HTML, writing it, making sure my syntax is. I know I'm a developer. I know what I'm doing. I just want to write code essentially, and Slim allows me to do that a lot easier. Which also SAS allows you to do that. All those preprocessor languages are extremely helpful. Are there any? Okay, Jade is really similar to Slim. The syntax is. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Some developers are kind of stuck in their ways, but once they get into Slim or Jade, those preprocessor languages, they save a lot of time. And I know that I was fairly stubborn from the get-go to get into SAS and less, but after a while of actually building stuff within it, I found that it was really fun. It made writing code a lot more funner, and it allowed me to think more strategically about how I'm writing my code and understanding the different components and how I can work them so that I'm writing less code and I'm getting a lot more done. I think about a week or two of me just saying I want to. Sure, those are great languages, but people are finding a lot better results within these languages, and it was just a matter of wanting to use them on a project or using them specifically on a project. So understanding, like, I have this project coming up. I want to use these two because they're good, they're new, people are using them. I've heard good things about them. And after a while of using them within that specific project, I was like, why haven't I jumped over here? So it's just a matter of getting into it, just like any other language, really. Um, there's this awesome. Have you guys heard of Particle.js? Anyone? There's this JavaScript library that we're using on our portfolio, and also I've been kind of playing around with a lot. Here it is, Particle.js. So I think that's what I had here in this Grunt demo. It's this cool thing right here. There's no use case for it really, but it just looks really cool. Yeah, you can bind data to it via JSON, and you can manipulate everything as far as like the size, the opacity of the different particles, the size, the speed of the animation. Oh yeah, it's really taxing on the browser, and you're definitely going to remove it for mobile. So that's kind of something I've been playing around with. Um, I would say Gulp. I find, well, it depends on the project that you're working on. What are you gonna be? What do you think that you'll be using? Okay, I I would say Gulp. Um, uh, I haven't used Brunch on a project. Like I said, I just discovered it 2 weeks ago. but it has a good community coming out of it, and it's a really new language, or it's a really new task manager. So I thought I'd mention it too. And I've read a little bit on it, but I haven't actually built or used it on the project yet. Trying to think what else I can. Yeah. Well, it depends if it's a recurring project or if it's something that needs a lot of management in the long run. It's helpful to convert it sooner rather than later because you're going to be going back in it. But I kind of like starting project new when I'm using a new tool because it really helps me understand that and understand the limitations of it, and also just play around with it. So we have a few Grunt projects that we are converting to Gulp, but that's mainly because those are projects that are ongoing and that we want to be using Gulp within. Things are breaking, yes, but if things aren't breaking, then you're not doing something, or you're not doing something right. But it's a bit of a learning curve, but in the long run, and also the speed of it, like just that speed increase is a lot better, and it's a much smarter task manager, which I kind of like. I would watch out for, there are a few different methods of using your Grunt file or building your project with Grunt or Gulp. I like to use let's go to, I like to use a config.rb file to just declare like my HTML, my HTTP class, my path, my CSS path, SAS, images, all that stuff out of the gate. And then I use that within my Grunt file here for Compass. And it tells Compass where all of these directories are, so that I don't have to declare that within my Grunt file. There are a few things that you can do that can kind of just make working on a Grunt or Gulp project a lot easier. But there isn't like a set within every programming language. There isn't like a set. Sure, there are best practices, but however, you kind of can make it work the way how is best fitting for your project and your workflow. Yeah, I really like it because it gets all of my hard work out of the gate. Like I can just write code. I can just write Gulp watch or Grunt watch and just write code and not have to worry about reloading the page, also compiling my JavaScript. All my dependencies already loaded. If I save something, if I add in new dependencies, Grunt or Gulp is going to add it in my project or add it within my plugins.main.js file for me. And I can also keep my HTML lean, whereas I only have a main.js and a plugins.js. I don't have all of these dependencies within my HTML or when the page is rendered. I only have 2 HTTP requests, or there'll be more, but as far as scripts and styles, I only have 2, which keeps your site and also your project more lean because it's not as taxing on the browser, and you're not declaring all of your dependencies within your markup. I'm guessing a lot of people use Git. Git SVN, any thoughts? Git? I like this crowd. You guys are great. I'm liking this. Yeah, I love Git. I moved from SVN a few years ago, and I haven't looked back. Yep. Hey, hey. I haven't dug deep into Coffeescript. I haven't been able to use. I've played around with it a little bit, but I haven't been able to use it on a production project. I like it because it's similar to any preprocessor because it makes writing your code a lot easier, and you don't have to write as much lines. However, I guess I'm kind of stuck back with my JavaScript. I like writing JavaScript. I like writing vanilla JavaScript and also jQuery a little bit. I feel like I can get a lot more done, especially if I know that I can get more done with a function writing in vanilla JavaScript rather than jQuery, and it's going to be a lot faster, I'm going to do that. Coffeescript is, what are your thoughts on Coffeescript? What do you think? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What is TypeScript? What's TypeScript? I've never heard of TypeScript. Okay. 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 Cool. Check that out. Hey. You can use Grunt within any environment, really, which I kind of like. I use Grunt whenever I'm building Ruby applications. Also, I haven't used Gulp on Ruby yet, but I'm sure you'll be able to do it. One thing I like about the task managers is that they're built on Node, and they're going to work just about everywhere. They work on any platform. And whatever you're building, it's really easy to inherit, no matter what platform you're on. So another developer can inherit that project. They don't have to install as many dependencies, which I find very useful and time saving. Anyone else using some cool front end or even back end languages and tools within their projects? Are we all just writing .NET static HTML pages still? Oh yeah, I'm just joking. Yeah, hey. I love bourbon. Thank you. Yeah. Uh, Bourbon is great for, so all my vendor folders, okay, here's bourbon. It's great for using mixins with Sass. It's a mixin library. So for instance, if I want to do some CSS animation, I can use Bourbon to do that, whereas I'm just writing 3 or 4 lines of code to do that. And then Bourbon, using those mixins, Bourbon handles most of that heavy lifting. And I also include it in my, I don't know if I'm using it on this. So I include it within my import. And when you, I'm not sure if you guys know or are aware of this, but when you import a Sass file within another Sass file, it compiles it and concatenates it within one file. So it's not like regular CSS where you're importing and it's doing another HTTP request. It's doing one, and everything's going to be in one file. There's just some great things that Bourbon allows you to do with CSS3, like animations, with the mixins library, and also some functions that are just really helpful and allow you to save more time and write less code. But I strongly recommend mixin libraries. They're awesome. They're really great. Who's all using Grunt currently on some projects? Anyone using Gulp? Cool. Brunch? Anyone? Brunch, young Brunch. I'm sure next Google DevFest, that's all we're going to be talking about. Brunch. Awesome. Any additional questions, thoughts, ideas? You guys are so quiet. It's 3 p.m. already. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at happy hour. Any good talks so far here at DevFest? The most silent crowd I have ever encountered. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I think I'm going to call it quits then, if there aren't any other questions. I think I'm reaching my time anyway. Thank you guys. Awesome.